What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we've got another rules roundup from the lovely folks over at the Transformers TCG HQ, which I'm still assuming is what it's called. They have given us their weekly rulings. Now, some of these I believe are repeated from previous rulings, but I figure we'll go through them quickly. We won't spend too much time on them, but some of you may have forgotten, some of you may have missed them first time round, etc. So, starting off then, let's have a look. First question that was asked: Peace through tyranny. Does it let you go first after everybody on taps, or does it let you take a second turn right after your current attack, skipping the opponent's turn? And the answer is, Peace Through Tyranny allows you to have an extra turn after the turn in which you play it. After that turn, it's your opponent's turn. It's just straight away. If you play it, you go. Remember, we saw a ruling recently whereby you can actually play this even if you've got all tapped characters and your opponent doesn't, and you won't be able to take an attack that turn because all your characters are tapped, but you still get an extra turn. You just have nobody untapped. Speaking of tapped and untapped characters, if my opponent has all tapped enemies and I have 3 untapped enemies, do I start my regular turn drawing my card, flipping a character, etc., then attack with all 3 of my characters one after another, skipping the opponent's turns until all my characters are tapped? Or after each attack, is my opponent allowed to draw a card, flip, and play an action or upgrade? The rule is extremely simple. During your turn, you have to draw a card, and then you may flip a transformer, play an action, play an upgrade, use a tap ability. And then, if you've got any untapped characters, you attack. And then, if your opponent has any untapped characters, it's their turn. But if all of your opponent's characters are tapped, then you attack with each of your untapped characters in turn. Then you all untap, and you start again. Major Shockwave. Another question about what exactly counts as a Decepticon card. Decepticon Crown and Swindled are the 2 we're using as examples here. You can see the Decepticon logo in the main body of the card. You can see the fact that they've got, well, let's say slightly different edging. They look a little bit different. They're purpley, although I'm colourblind, they might not be purple. Someone told me they were purple. That's what a Decepticon card is for the purposes of Major Shockwave. And seeing as Major Shockwave can play a Decepticon card as if it is in your hand, that's pretty gosh darn important. That is if it's the top card of your deck. Cool. Hunker Down lets you flip each of your characters from bot mode to tank mode, and then for each of your characters in tank mode that doesn't have an armor, you may put an armor from the scrap pile onto it. Well, what about Superior Plating, which can only be played after you play a tech research? Yes, you can do it. And the rule is extremely simple. Superior Plating can only be played after a tech research, but you're not playing it, you're attaching it directly from the scrap pile, and that, ladies and gentlemen, ain't the same as playing it. What about abilities that last until the end of the turn? So let's take Prowl, for instance. Still my favourite 6-cost car. In alt mode, when you flip to alt mode, each of your cars gets bold 2 until end of turn. So, is that until the end of your attack, or until all cards untapped? And the answer is neither. It's until the end of your turn. And like we said earlier, during your turn, you draw a card. You can flip one of your Transformers if you want. You can play an action if you want. You can play an upgrade if you want. You can use a tap ability if you want. And then at the end of your turn, if you've got any untapped characters, you may attack with one of them. Usually, that is the last thing you will do, and then it runs out. But let's go back to the Peace Through Tyranny example. If I play Peace Through Tyranny on the turn in which I tap my final character, I will have one more turn, but I won't be able to attack at the end of it because all my characters are tapped. So I don't get to keep my bold or whatever it might be until the end of the next turn. It is until the end of that turn. It's not your attack. It's not until all cards untap. It is until you reach the end of your turn, which is usually denoted by an attack, but not necessarily. Now, last week we looked at a security console ruling. Now, the ruling essentially was that if Debilitating Crystal is attached to a character, when the upgraded character attacks, return one of the defending character's upgrade to its owner's hand, and it goes against something that has a security console on it. Security console saying when the upgraded character defends, draw a card, then plan one. We saw that Debilitating Crystal did not remove it. So, the question is the effect independent of the card that triggered it once the trigger occurred? They think the security console should no longer be in play to resolve the trigger. Debilitating Crystal should already have gotten rid of it. And the answer is, once an ability triggers, it will happen even if the card that has the ability leaves the battlefield or other zone if appropriate in the meantime. So, essentially, even though Debilitating Crystal does get rid of Security Console has already been triggered, so even though Security Console is gone, you still need to resolve the effect. So, Sunstreaker. It's one of these Sentinels, which means it's got a skill whereby when you flip it in the KO area, it does something. In this case, when you flip it into bot mode in the KO area, you get to draw a card. Drawing a card, pretty gosh darn nice. Would that still trigger Cliffjumper's alt mode skill to draw a card? Cliffjumper reads, when you flip one of your other cards to bot mode, draw a card. I like this question, and it's not been asked yet. And it's an interesting one. But we have had a blanket answer which covers this. Abilities in the KO area only affect things where they are specifically stated. So if we look at a card like Combat Commands, for instance, that is a card that specifically lets you flip a character in the KO area. It's a Sentinels card. When the upgraded character attacks, which has to be a Sentinel, you can only put it on Sentinels, you may flip a Sentinel in your KO area from bot to alt mode and then back. But the rule is very simple. Unless a card like this specifically says it interacts with a KO area, it doesn't. What about Rollout? When I play Rollout, this lets you flip all of your characters to alt mode. Do all the flips to alt mode happen at once, or do they happen one at a time? Also, how does it work with skills that have the when you flip to this mode clause? So, if we look at something like Cliffjumper, for instance, when you flip them all, you get to draw one for each card that you flipped, but then you also get something like Prowl, which gives you bold 2 on all your cards. And it says all the bots flip at the same time. If more than one ability triggers, you resolve those triggers in any order. The rule in Transformers generally is whoever is doing it gets the choice as to the order in which it happens. So Specialist Ratchet then. That's a card that got revealed this week. So one of the really cool things that happened in the past week is that we finally, 3 waves in, got a Ratchet card. I say got a Ratchet card. We don't have a Ratchet card yet. But when Wave 3 releases, we will have a Ratchet card, and that will be lovely. And in bot mode, when you repair damage, this gets +1 until the end of turn for each damage that you repaired. So if you get a +3 attack bonus from the skill and then flip it into alt mode, would it carry over? Yes. Yes, it would. So if you, I don't know, let's say you play something like Emergency Maintenance, this is a kind of card where you could see yourself healing free, because you heal 1, but then if you've got more stars in the KO area than on the field, you heal another 2, that makes 3. If you play that and then flip Ratchet with your flip for the turn, it will carry over. Essentially, it doesn't matter what you put on them. It's like when you put Power Sword onto a melee character and flip it into a mode that's not melee. As long as you do it on bot mode, it sticks in alt mode. Now, the exception to this would be something like Nemesis Prime, because if we look at the wording on Nemesis Prime, it gets +3 attack for each card under it, but that's only in bot mode. You aren't granted the attack. It is a static. Bot mode has the attack. Ergo, it doesn't keep when you flip, whereas Ratchet grants it, you flip, you keep it. Now here's an interesting one. We've got these Wave 3 characters like Ratchet and also Ultra Magnus that attach a card or put a card in your hand, Ultra Magnus attaches an Ultra Magnus armor. Ratchet goes for a medic in your deck and puts it in your hand. Do you do that before or after you draw your opening hand for the game? And it does make a difference. Because if you do it before, then you have a better chance of drawing an opening hand without it. Whereas if you do it after, you could technically draw an opening hand with 3 Ultra Magnus armor, and then there's none in your deck to attack. You do it before the game starts and then draw 3 cards, which is the better way round. So how about Slipstream then? Slipstream in alt mode with no damage, and my opponent has an Alpha Bravo in alt mode. Alpha Bravo, when an enemy plane attacks, do 1 damage to it. Slipstream in alt mode, when one of your planes attacks, move 1 damage counter from it to the defender. So what actually happens? Does Slipstream take the damage and then move it over to Alpha Bravo? Or does Slipstream try and move the damage, there's none there, and then Alpha Bravo does the damage? If both characters had 1 health remaining, would Slipstream be KO'd by Alpha Bravo? Or would Alpha Bravo be KO'd by Slipstream? And the answer is, in the first scenario, Slipstream's ability triggers first, doesn't have any damage to move, then Alpha Bravo would deal 1 damage to Slipstream. In the second, both abilities will trigger, meaning Slipstream will move 1 damage to Alpha Bravo, KOing him. Then Alpha Bravo's ability damages Slipstream, bringing her health to 1. Because remember, she had 1 health, moved 1 damage over to go to 2 health, then takes a damage to go back down to 1. When it's all your abilities triggering, as we saw earlier in the video, you get a choice. But when it's yours and your opponent's, yours go first. There we go. Now, the last question all revolves around secret actions. Are they actions? And the answer very simply is yes. So, it means that when you play a Brainstorm, you can play 2 actions, 2 secret actions, or 1 of each. It means that the recently revealed Captain Wheeljack's bot mode skill, that, for those of you that may have forgotten, when you play your 3rd action during your turn, draw a card, will work if one of them, or indeed all of them you've played, are special actions. I did suggest this during the Captain Wheeljack video and in a couple others. I was fairly sure this was the rule, but isn't that nice to get a little bit of clarification? And it also means that Thundercracker Mac Warrior in bot mode, you know I always talk about the alt mode, I adore the alt mode, but in bot mode, you get +1 attack when you play an action. It would trigger if you play a secret action. To put it simply, secret actions are subsets of actions. So every secret action is an action. However, every action is not necessarily a secret action. Some of them are, some of them aren't. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Those are the rules this week, and you know I'm going to be back every week with a rules roundup, explaining it to you, because honestly, I really enjoy doing them, and doing these week after week is really giving me a good understanding of the rules, and hopefully, and these are among my more popular videos on this channel, hopefully you guys watching these will get a better appreciation of the rules as well. Huge shout out to the lovely folks at Transformers TCG HQ for doing them. So for now, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you tell me what you think about these rules in the comment section. Go nuts, be nice, and then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, and follow me on Twitter at the Wossy, where we talk about games like Transformers, but a whole bunch of others. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.